Welcome to the Alsco Uniforms It Pays to Keep Clean podcast. Join us as we spend time with Alsco Chief Operating Officer Jim Kearns. I'm your host, Dana Craig. Let's get started. Good morning, Jim. How are you doing?
Great, Dana. How are you?
I'm doing okay. You just got back from some travel that we want to chat about this morning. Yeah. So this month, and we've actually just tipped over into May. I think today's May 1st. But this week you were in Charlotte, Richmond, and Allentown. So all Tim Jones Region 6 branches. Allentown is a repeat visit, of course. So I think you started in Charlotte, so we'll go ahead and start there. Alan Sowers is our general manager there. They also have two production facilities. Did you end up going to both of them?
We started out in Charlotte South.
Yeah.
And then we went to Charlotte North. Charlotte North is kind of their healthcare facility.
Okay.
But I had been to Charlotte, a few times over the years when we used to big into NASCAR. We would come to Charlotte for the NASCAR race there and stop in and see the facility. So I'd been in Charlotte in the not too distant past. But yeah, we started out in Charlotte, Charlotte South, and then went to the North plant.
Were you able to see service teams at both places, or are they already?
Only saw service teams at Charlotte South.
Okay.
And so but we did have some good discussions with the RSRs. Talked about how it was going, selling first aid products and all that sort of stuff. And so, yeah, it was good. We didn't see any in Charlotte North by the time we got there.
Yeah, they were already off to the races by then. So in general, how did the plants look? How are they doing on their growth journey and other initiatives?
The plants both look good. We have a lot of room in Charlotte North for growth, right? And so we could put a lot more healthcare there. So that was exciting to see. There's lots of opportunities there. It was pretty full in Charlotte South, right? And they were pretty busy. So that was good to see as well.
They haven't always had this designation of healthcare. I mean, they wouldn't have had enough healthcare to have a designation, but is it always kind of trended that way, maybe?
I think it's always trended that way.
Okay.
It's been maybe healthcare bulk.
Okay.
So they do some hospitality there as well. But yeah, a lot of opportunity there. And, Charlotte's a terrific market.
Yeah, definitely.
So.
And they have a couple of depots, maybe only one, but they go out further into the mountains, maybe.
Yeah, I think they actually have 3 depots.
Oh, do they have that many? Okay.
So I can tell you where their depots are. They have one in Spartanburg. They have one in Hendersonville and one in Hildenbrand. So they've got 3 depots.
Nice catch.
Yeah,
Proud of you.
3 depots.
Yeah, good. So their service area then is fairly broad, and I'm assuming
it is.
Highest growth maybe in that Charlotte metropolitan area, but even into the other areas that they
Spartanburg,
service.
A lot of these places are really taking off.
Yeah.
So it's a nice place. Charlotte's a banking capital.
Right.
There are a lot going on there, but they're growing well there.
And was there any conversation around, I know a few years ago when there was the large flooding that hit the Asheville area, which would have impacted some of our business in that Charlotte area, fully recovered from that? Was there any conversation around that?
There was conversation. I wouldn't say it's fully recovered, right? They say it's still coming back.
Yeah.
Slower than, probably they had hoped for, but it is coming back. But yeah, a little slow.
Yeah. So where are they seeing most of the growth? If it's a banking capital, that would maybe be facility services, but is there a lot of medical, industrial, some of the target market stuff we might be looking for?
They're seeing a lot of opportunities in the industrial side. There's a lot of competitors in the healthcare space, so that's challenging as well. So, but we're seeing good target market growth. We've got it's a good F&B market as well, so we're kind of seeing it across the board.
Yeah, good
there.
Good. Anything else of note from your Charlotte visit?
Yeah, there's a couple things. One thing that they've done really well in Charlotte is improve their employee retention. Right, they were on the high side. Had a lot of turnover they've done a great job of bringing that down. So that was interesting. Another interesting thing was their chief engineer, whose son is a manager of one of our plants on the west coast here. But he did a great job of tracking expenses in the engineering department. It was very interesting to see what he did. And we talked about other interesting things, something I hadn't heard of before. In an effort to make sure that we're doing DVIRs in all locations, I heard this new thing, the short dipstick. And so, the service managers will, put a short dipstick in the truck. So, when they check it, they're making sure that they're checking the oil like they're supposed to every day. And so I thought that was interesting. That was something that I hadn't heard being done before. But
does everybody have one, or is it like a short straw where there are only a few around?
It's a short straw, right? It just kind of keeps.
But they're passing it around,
keeping everybody honest.
Okay. Oh, I like that. That's
good.
It
was a different technique that I hadn't really heard before. So that was
so you're at least going to check the one thing, because that you might have the short dipstick.
Exactly.
Hopefully they're being.
But we spent a lot of time talking about what we can do to put more volume into that Charlotte North plant, that healthcare plant.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be a focus of ours going forward.
Okay, great. Well, that's good to hear. To Virginia you went, into the Richmond area. So
right.
Richmond, Virginia, capital of Virginia, of course, and then kind of bedroom community, although probably larger than that, but bedroom community for the Washington, D.C. area, and kind of everything that sprawls out from that. Tony Beam is our general manager there. Probably been a while since you'd been to Richmond, I would imagine.
Been a long while
okay.
Since I've been to Richmond.
And how was that visit?
So the last time I was in Richmond, we had just completed an expansion of the soil room. Right?
Okay.
So it's been a while since I've been there. They operate a big depot in Northern Virginia. They call it, it's in Sterling. They call it the Sterling Depot or the Novo Depot, Northern Virginia. So we had a good walkthrough of the plant. We had some really good discussions, with the RSR team. I met a guy who'd been an RSR for 42 years.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, his name is David Whitlock.
Hardy character, 42 years as an RSR.
Yeah, and he's got a few more years left in him.
Has he been in Richmond the entire time? I don't know why he wouldn't have been, but is that?
I think so. I think so.
Okay.
I didn't get a full history.
But probably in that same area.
I think so.
Interesting.
I think so.
So what else about Richmond? So we've got David Whitlock, the 42-year veteran RSR. It would have been interesting, too, if you had a conversation with him about his foray into either first aid or sales. He would have seen a lot of iterations of this type of activity, I imagine, over the 4 decades he's been working.
Yeah, I mean, with a guy that has that much tenure, and he's been, from time to time they move him from route to route, but his customers get pretty used to seeing him day in and day out. He takes good care of them. Mm-hmm. So these guys are selling all the time, and really growing the business for us. But look, Richmond's doing well. I mean, one of the bright spots there was their P&L performance. They've had a good first quarter. They're putting up some pretty good numbers, so that's good to see. They're working hard to retain the customers that they've got.
Good.
They've got some interesting leads ahead of them. So different accounts. I thought that we had potentially a lost business problem there, but once you got into the numbers a little bit with them, and there was one large account that they lost. They're doing pretty good there with their lost business. So that's exciting. I expect Richmond to have a pretty good year this year.
And what does target market look like for them?
There's a lot of industrial business around that Richmond area. Mm-hmm. They don't do a lot of healthcare. They do some like nursing homes and some things like that, more retail medical type stuff. But there's a lot of industrial opportunities there, and in all three of these branches, the sales teams are really focused on bringing in target market business, and they're
Great.
they're very successful doing it. So,
And so that's where he's seeing a lot of his growth
Yeah.
is in target market.
in Richmond, we promoted a guy in Richmond. He is now the general manager in Rochester, and so we had a service manager who got promoted to be the production manager. We have a DM that got promoted to the service manager. So, we've got it's kind of a new team.
Yeah.
They have a lot of experience in the branch, but it's nice to see
They're
that.
shifting around some roles.
Yeah,
and see.
and Tony's developing some new leaders.
Yeah, that's
in the
nice.
business. But it was it was a lively meeting, and these guys in Richmond, you can tell they like each other. They work well together. It's very interesting. And the new service manager we were talking about, apparently he's a big Michigan football fan, and mentioned something to him that the University of Utah coach is coaching at the University of Michigan, and he got so excited he showed us a Michigan tattoo that he had on his arm, and that was something that I told him it might make the podcast, because that's not something that's happened to us before. But so yeah, it was an interesting meeting.
So up the road you went again to Allentown, Pennsylvania. We had that facility, was a year in February. So in that period of time, you've had the opportunity to go a few times, of course, because as a new acquisition branch, there's always a lot to make sure that the culture is moving in the right direction. In the case of Allentown, we had a lot of investment in equipment to make, and they're making their way through that with still a little bit more to go, of
Right.
course. So how did that visit go? Were you able to meet with the RSRs on the
We did,
dock
and-
again?
Yeah, and similar to Richmond, I run into this guy, Jimmy Johnson, 43 years as an RSR. And so he was interesting to talk to, and he kind of gave me he worked for Macintosh before, and he worked for another company before that, all in Allentown. Yeah, he was. I spent a little bit of time, talking with him about, his route and what it was like to service his customers for
Yeah.
that long a period of time. And he claims it takes 2 or 3 guys to cover him when he's off vacation, right? But yeah, they have. I talked to several people that were good. There was a guy talked about selling first aid, and he said we had the Tesla of first aid products, right? And he went through kind of his spiel that he does when he sells first aid. And I think this guy can sell some first aid cabinets,
Oh,
right?
very cool.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
very exciting to listen to. And, and talking with the service team, I guess this guy is really a mentor for other RSRs. He's got a contagious personality. Yeah, so they were all good. And I got a nice note from Jim Rogers today that the RSR team really appreciated us stopping and spending some time
Yeah,
with them,
I
and
bet.
having the executive team engage with them.
Well, they've been through a lot, as has the entire facility with all of the changes, but the RSRs perhaps in particular, as they've kind of watched and witnessed, waiting for things to settle down so
Yeah,
that
and
they can
I asked everyone.
predictably
Yeah.
service their customers. Yeah.
And I asked every one of them, are things improving? And every one of them said, yeah, things are getting better and better every day.
Good.
So yeah,
That's
that was
great to hear.
Yeah, that was very positive to hear. So that's exciting. They've done some nice signage out front of the building from the last time I was there. So the facility has great curb appeal. They've done a great job in their lunchroom. It's been redone. It looks really nice.
Oh, good.
So that's exciting, and the plant looks different. You can see the investment that's been made in that plant. It's starting to evolve into a real solid Alsco
Right.
facility. Yeah.
Good to hear.
So, we're getting a new tunnel there in Q3 sometime, and so after that, we should be well positioned to really
Ready to fly.
ready
Is
to
the-
fly. And they've got they've got a great market here. So, yeah, it's going to look good. I mean, they're investing in their people, they're investing in the facility, and, now we have to invest in growth.
So one of the other changes I think that was fairly recent there, we had John Kirkner as the RSM who had been covering that region while things were kind of settling down. He's kind of out of that role now for a new gentleman to take over. I think he participated in your meetings.
Right.
Dan Kavanaugh, is that?
Kaufman.
Kaufman? Okay.
Dan Kaufman.
Dan
yeah.
Kaufman. Okay.
It was good to see him because many of us had met Dan, before, and I didn't know if I'd see Dan again, and so it was nice to see him there. And he's a New Jersey guy, and so he knows the market well, and so everybody's super excited for
That's
Dan to be there, and he has industry.
Dan excited too? I hope.
Dan's, super excited.
Good.
Super excited. So he's happy to get this opportunity. We're happy to have him.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he was a bright star for that organization. So I think Jim Rogers is really starting to build a solid team there. Somebody that's going to help us, really, really grow this business in the years ahead.
Yeah, that's exciting to hear because, like you said, not only just in that, what I would call Allentown proper and those surrounding areas, there's a lot of industrial opportunity, a lot of all kinds of opportunity that maybe we haven't been in a position to tap as of yet. Dan can hopefully help us do that. And then if he's a Jersey guy, I'm sure that once we kind of figure out those borders with the other branches in the region, he'll be hitting that pretty hard as well.
For sure.
Should be good.
We have a new engineer there. This is also something. I mean, this guy was supposed to start on Tuesday. He showed up for work on Monday, right? And
okay, that's not usually the way that happens.
Like I said, I hadn't heard that before, but
but we'll take you.
Yeah, he was so excited, ready, and he wanted to get going. He showed up a day early, and he went to work.
Okay, good.
And so, without even meeting him, I felt like I liked him already.
Right.
But he has some experience, right? And so he is going to have a big impact on the plant, going forward. So it was nice to meet him and see that he was off to a fast start.
Yeah.
Everybody's very bullish about this gentleman. I think he'll do a terrific job there.
Well, he picked not that he picked the week to start, but an interesting week to start when a couple days after you start, you're going to have a crew, cast of thousands, walking through, asking a lot of challenging questions.
Yeah, he'll be key to our success there going forward. Keeping all of that equipment up and running, and particularly as we get through these last
and continuing to build that engineering team. I think they've got some strong technicians there with some good industry experience that now we can be the beneficiaries of, and maybe under his leadership that will go really well. Hope so.
But they're getting used to Able. That's
not nothing.
I think we underestimate how long that takes.
Yes.
But these guys are, they're finally getting onto that. But yeah, it's I sent a note to Bob Steiner afterwards saying it's not going to be too long before Allentown becomes a big contributor.
Yeah.
It's a nice building. It's a nice facility. We're making the right investments.
And Jim Rogers has no, that's his full expectation, right? He's a competitor at heart, I think. And along with his service manager, John Issa, and others, I'm sure they're going to.
Yeah, no, they're positioned to do well there.
That's great. And they're probably hoping not to. Maybe they'd be proud to see you again, but they're not wanting to see you again.
Yeah, they probably don't, but but we will go back to.
Yes, I'm sure you will.
Allentown when it's kind of all buttoned up.
Right.
When everything, when most of the investments are made.
Right.
Just the load build conveyors. I mean, it really looks like an Elsco plant when you go in there now. They do a decent job at 5S, and the morale of the people there. They're a happy bunch, right?
Yeah.
They smile a lot, and so that's still there, right? And I was happy to see that they've invested a little bit of that capital in making sure that we've got a nice break room for these folks.
Yeah, no, it's been a good balance of expenditures, I think.
It looks terrific there. Good. So, yeah, I'm more excited today about Allentown than I was, when I left to go there. So that's good. But all three of these branches have, Charlotte has great opportunity, a great market. Richmond has, a great opportunity. So yeah, we're in good spots there.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, in a few weeks, we're already in May, so in a few weeks you'll be heading out again, and it sounds like you're slated for Anchorage, Seattle, and Billings.
Right.
And I think other than Anchorage, maybe those are all repeat visits.
Seattle and Billings are repeats.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Just from last year, maybe.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So.
Well, no, we didn't go to Billings last year. We went there maybe the year before. We got postponed in Billings.
Okay. So, well, that's almost good. So they've had 18 to 24 months runway, so you should see a lot of changes there.
Well, looking at their performance, they've really turned the corner.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I know Seattle has had some setbacks, so it's going to see how we're doing there, how we've reacted to those setbacks. But I'm anxious to go to Billings because I think it's a real turnaround for us. And
that'll be great.
Yeah, that should be fun.
Anything else that you want to chat about this time?
I just look, we're focusing on a few items. And I had them in the message that we sent out.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to go through them again. The message, the video was playing in Charlotte and in Richmond.
Really?
And I was pleasantly surprised at how many people had watched the video, right? And I had a few people recognize me, which was good. The guy...
it's because of all that podcast viewing that they're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I heard, people are embracing this communication that we're doing. Apparently it runs kind of on a I need to talk to our IT folks. It runs on a continuous loop. And the engineer said, he showed up and it was running and nobody was in the plant except for me and him.
And you weren't helping out as much as he probably wished you were either.
I thought, well, we got to fix that.
Yeah.
But no, I think we've got to focus on, retaining our customers. It's a challenging market out there on a lot of different ways. We've got to keep focusing on upselling our customers.
Yes.
I think our RSR teams are really starting to embrace that. We got to make sure that our equipment is running. It's reliable. That downtime's not beating us.
Sure.
And so, but overall, we're off to a good start. April looks to be a pretty good month, and I have high expectations for Q2. I think it'll be
good.
Even better than Q1. So, yeah, it's good.
Well, we'll be keeping track, obviously, as we move through, and hopefully your prognosticating about Q2 comes to fruition.
I'm pretty confident that it will. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of good things,
good.
A lot of good execution out there.
Okay. Well, thanks for your time as
Thank
always.
you.
We'll chat soon.
Okay.
That's all for today's episode of the It Pays to Keep Clean podcast. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the world of Alsco uniforms, where we explore the growth and challenges in our industry. Tune in next time for more industry insights, growth strategies, and tales from the field. If you've enjoyed our time together, please leave us a rating and review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you want to learn more about our services, visit us at alsco.com. From all of us here at the It Pays to Keep Clean podcast and Alsco Uniforms, thank you for listening. Stay safe, stay clean, and we'll see you in the next episode.